Hello. I think a lot of me uh, can be heard, but a lot of me of like what could happen in a simple matter of moments. Isn't that great? Um, and I pray for that a lot. I pray for the fact that like things that make me hold value with my own airspace, my own thinking process, um, where I don't leave any sacrament like any remnants basically of just trying to keep things in a particular manner that I feel like would be contributable to the Holy Spirit. Sometimes I'm in a space where like I know that's what I'm supposed to do. If I don't do it, something could happen. Like that's in the past as well. I'm not even trying to keep that keep that check space just because I find it highly relevant for me to garner more material. I don't know if that has to do with focus, if that has to do with research. Sometimes that had a lot to do with timing and how I was able to like kind of relay what was going on in my life and see if that could kind of spot out differences in a plain, seamless ideal. Which is why I kind of like started these videos. Kind of wanted to like just chime in how I speak, and what my mode of value is coming from after such conflict revolution of perhaps something that really doesn't. It was no fault to me or to the other party or to whoever I was talking to, and that's something that I feel like is genuinely needed right now. But more than that, like I always just like to jot down certain perspectives of mine that like I feel like can continue on forward that does make sense in a relevant case, when especially when like you're just going about an everyday life that doesn't have too much say in a matter, but you do have your perspective, and it's richly becoming more and more of a truth for you. And that's just a walk of path of life that I think is genuine sometimes. Most of the times, actually, maybe like 80, 90%. It's just when it comes down to it, I think that I have a perspective as well that kind of makes me a little bit derailed. Going backwards is a terrible habit, but looking back at your history is a discernment. So there's a difference there. Um, Man, right from the get-go, I would just say like the big question that I think really could be like kind of like just valued is the question of, do you need help? Is a good first question. The depth of that question is where I'd skip to, and expertise to be falling energy for someone like like whenever you ask somebody for help, you may never know if you're gonna be asked for help in such a crazy way. Sometimes it's immediate. Like I remember when I skipped off of like helping people move, and like that's one that like I think people will always know, like, to be genuine, like if you're a friend you should help. But the thing about that is like what I really mean is that I want to use the example. It's like, yeah, those are passing by, and those are passing by, but I think in the simple manner of it all, that's where it actually does start. Sometimes I feel like skipping it is not the best part. I think you should stay with it, and you should always be a part of that. And that doesn't even really shine a light in either form. It's just like, you move, you go on, but that's not a existential thing. That's just a regular thing. But when I say, where I skip to, sometimes people really need help, and sometimes people really need some serious help. Like, I don't know how far that would go for somebody, but that serious help is kind of brushed off because people know what they're going through. People understand like they got a lot of busyness going on. The reason why I bring this up again is because asking for help and asking somebody, "Do you need help?" is probably like seriously genuine. Um, and I think that's something that it's just a good kind notion, good kind action. Ask if you could be about that. you know. And this guys would be becoming, because the helper would soon learn that specializing is important. I just noted that down because you know you could become a good helper, become good fixer, but then everything else becomes more specialized. depending on, how far you go about that expertise. And that expertise is, one that I can't really speak on because I always thought I was like all around kind of person. But then as I almost require myself to be all around person, it kind of shrunk and compacted. And then I'm like, dang, like how do I look at that and even look at where would someone else need to be in that kind of outside norm when everyone just needs help in the regular stuff. And so it's in the regular stuff, regular work that an everyday person, a real man, if he works all of his life, is a real man. Like that's what I thought was what it was. But that in itself is like almost time conducing based off me just trying to say that I appreciate every day. A different perspective doesn't usually mean something else. I just mean that um, sometimes you could have like a willpower or a will that kind of doesn't determine like your freedom, but like it kind of like wants you to be a part of something. That's another form of like, do you need help? It's like, like some people I think in this world, depending on work, is like so abstractly involved with like this is just a maybe, but it's like you might like not think that other people want to help you too. And there's always a reason why somebody's trying to help you. Like what benefit do you have from it or something like that? Like the tough part is like for me, like I genuinely thought I was, but like I'm telling you, like if I were to ask you, do you need help? Like there's just some things about that I just think means a lot more than just saying like, oh man, like this isn't anything that you have ever been a part of. It's something that I always felt like was a baseline, like you are a part of this and you could be more so a part of it. Like how much more? That's what I mean by the specializing. But like specializing, it does open up so much doors and it opens up so much more responsibilities and abilities. Like how much of that would you be wanting to like take on that route? And for me, like I don't think that like you're not for me, I don't think I want to be a part of something that like, oh, I can't help you out in, but I could observe because that's something that I love to do too. But it's like if you're genuinely going through something, I wonder, do you put that aside, like, just put it aside, or do you know that this problem is going to be attributable to certain situations? I still feel like this is going backwards because my avid response is just saying like, yo, like I don't even like it's not even like for me like to, I would say that I move on and I keep going forward because that was how well it was going. Um, and so like if I look at the Old Testament or the New Testament, yeah, I love looking at what Jesus Christ did, but like a part of me like kind of responds to the humanistic values that like some of these old kings and some of these old prophets had really approved upon. So it's like if you have the law system in you, but you don't have to be a part of the law system. It's like then you're like in a stance where it's like now you gotta have that. You gotta have that it. And sometimes that it doesn't really make sense for other people. And so that help part is like where can you help? And so that commonality, that general norm of how you could help becomes a laziness? I don't think so. But I think, it stems from what can you do in a quick form. And that quick form shouldn't be appreciated in that way sometimes. It should be, hey man, just help them out in the way you know. And sometimes that takes a lot of time. For me, like the way I found my ways of being appropriate is being able to distribute kind of like good sense of salt, good sense of questioning. And it may be like one sentence, a couple of sentences, or maybe a small substance within a big picture. Like that is important to me, and I feel like that's what I would want to get, like neighbor, neighbor. But like sometimes people really could help other people without knowing because they don't know how much confidence they have, how much love they have, how much joy they have. Like I think sometimes like when I revolve myself around like these special relationships that I have in my life, like that's what I'm seeing it in. I'm seeing it in that kind of strength. And sometimes a lot of things that I think what a lot of people want to do is say we don't want that, let's move around that. But it's like for me, like I found some good parts that weren't so unequitable that were really loving. Is like what I mean is like it wasn't unequitable. Is really loving is that like yeah, even if we didn't want it to happen and we know it didn't happen, like that's what is kind of confirmed and like that's what's happening in my personal realm is like we know it and we know it to be true that like Jesus and Christ, Jesus Christ and everything is like everything a part of our life. But like, where are we? Where are we in this world? And I think that's really general, and that's really how people certain love to talk and stuff like that. But like to help people with the depths of what their norms are, you can kind of like understand like some people have nuances they don't want you to be a part of, and some people have nuances that they do want you to be a part of, and that could ultimately determine like how well you could communicate to one person. That's why I asked the question orthodox or unorthodox because I'm so no, I feel like if you were to ask somebody are you direct, and a direct person answers yes or no willingly and confidently. But if I'm looking at my responses, I'm saying I'm a very unorthodox person. But I'm looking at how I did my work, and I'm saying I'm a very orthodox person. So my responses are based off on alternative or primary reason that I already built myself upon. And I guess this is stress relieving to know that because I think knowing that I didn't really enjoy double-minded stances, but I did understand that there's a formulation that needs to be added because the answers that I have and that I need are almost becoming kind of like a I'm here and I'm in the moment, but I'm not doing as much as I should. And that would actually perform me to be better if I was, perhaps, because I've been there. I have done that. So I don't know. Sometimes I think that the mind frame could be developed through nuances, and that could be eventuality for snowball effect or a whole bunch of rubber bands together to make a really big ball. And like that could be something really fun, just bouncing ideas off each other. Like that's something that's a proponent of like that what I have been accustomed to these past couple of years, and you kind of figure out how that works. But then you think about what I've done before that. Think about what I've done past 4 years, in the past 6 years, past 8 years, and 10 and 12 and 14 years. These past 15 years ain't nothing like it. But I'm just saying like I'm not going to pick up experiences and nuances from back then. Why does it distribute in my mind? Sometimes I think those are natural responses because you look at old times and new times. Or maybe this is just me. Maybe this is just me speaking. And maybe this is just me it becoming, apparent because I don't have too many memories or something like that. But if you hear me say Gryffindor and Dumbledore, just skip that. Skip that. But like honestly, sometimes there's something that well if you hear well but yes, if you hear me say Gryffindor and a good line, I'm good. But if you hear me say Dumbledore, just skip that. Skip that. But like I think the perhaps it is safe to say that permanence needs to be rooted in something that matters consistency. You know what I mean? Like you know, you can't have Harry without having Dumbledore. You know what I mean? Like you can't have the Potter family without having his two parents. Like it just doesn't work with that. But then how unorthodox is Harry Potter? Like that is as unorthodox as you can get. But he's still the primary player. Like that's probably one of the most difficult fields and forms of questioning is because you know when I say, do you need help? How will you help that person that really does need help? And there are a lot of real world examples out right now that I think you can actually determine. But all I'm saying is, just sometimes when it comes down to it, like I love doing that with my parents. Like do you need, and it feels a good, joyful standard to me as well. But that comes down to like, why do I say this? Because people are so in tune with providing for their direct people option and open mindedness are becoming life. I mean, it doesn't matter to be pushed. Like, what I mean by that is like, yeah, like once you help so many people, you can become a good person. You could be a good person just simply by helping them. Then, like, you know, I feel like you can actually be really, really well mannered in that way. And, sometimes you kind of feel like you got to do more and you got to push more and you got to, and that is something that I'm looking towards. So like I would really love to be back in a responsive, optimal, joyful response. I mean, to be able to have life like that, it's almost a dream. I think, sometimes for people, like, there's a lot of people that have those characteristics that, like, go really far. And so, like, the roof's out. Like, I think, like, all that could be, all that is really possible. So, like, trying to push yourself, and how you help yourself and pushing yourself, like, I had this challenge too, where it's like, I don't know if you want to push yourself to the point where you feel like you're de-recommending yourself, because not for the simple fact of like, oh, humble brag, but it's like because of the fact that like what made it push you that hard. Like, things out there shouldn't be pushing you that hard unless if it's for the right reasons, right? Like, it shouldn't be for the bad reasons. And then that's why I'm like, dang it, man, like all the things that I would want to push for, I still stem off of that, but like sometimes I don't know how to help myself, because it's like I feel like I know the answers and I feel like I'm good with the answers, but it's like I kind of want to push myself. And like sometimes I always wanted to like have that want, too, because it's like it's a drive. It's a drive that makes you kind of understand like why people are willing to do what they do for other people. And then it's like, if you can't push yourself, are you that not that person? It's like, nah, like I don't even think like that. Like, it's not. It's like if I could think of somebody that like, like that, like I don't really put it like that. It's like, can you push yourself? And can you push yourself is one of the toughest things to do, personally, that I would think that would make somebody, fulfilled in what they feel like is true. Like, people that push themselves sometimes may not be fulfilled. Like, that's the hard one. And then if you're not pushing yourself and you're not in the right mind space, then sometimes I feel like you really do need help. And that's where sometimes it's like you got to understand if you can even ask for that. Like, can you even ask for like help? And that's where I was too. I was in a space where I'm like, man, I don't think I need help, but I need help. Like, I need a lot of help. And that was in a space a couple of years ago, and I was just like, something that doesn't really recommend. Like, I didn't get recommendations that I felt like were personally that great. They were great. They were great in some forms, but I personally didn't get the recommendations that I felt like where my mind space was at. Anyways, like it's a tricky manner, because when you don't have something um, that people should appreciate, then it becomes something that you shouldn't do. And I don't know. Sometimes that one is where you can realign yourself, and then you become part of the system. But that in itself, I already feel bitterness coming off of that, and like I just don't really think of that. Like, it's too much of a uncalming memory. It's a Dumbledore kind of thing. Uh, but I really do feel like, being Harry, kind of Gryffindorish, kind of, in my own unorthodox, work and then college, as opposed to college and then work. Like, to me, I'm like, I'm feeling so applicable, applicable to many of where people are right now. It's like, beyond the wars, beyond the infrastructures of men, uh, there is good grace and good workmanship, and like that's what I'm like keying on right now too. So it's like that's why I kind of like am like in between work and like um and what is it and and what I feel like kind of like is human collection of mastery, collect human mind of love and Jesus Christ, and human collection of what good support is, and what is free right and freedom, and what reigns, and freedom reigns, and like that part is so kind of conducive to if you're on the right angle. But like for me, like I feel like I'm off point if I'm off by a few, like, stuff. And so like when when certain things happen, when it's a little bit crazy in my mind, a lot of times I think it's not that, and I don't think it's like that at all. But a lot of times you will never realize like there could be what you think is going on. Like, like this Avengers thing is crazy. Like, it's like I don't know how to really. It's just people are willing to do stupid stuff, and then you have your overtures. You know what I mean? Like, you have your how much is someone willing to go? And I guess these are things that I would like to talk about, but I don't. And I don't really talk about that much because I only talk to my personal friends, personal people that I know. But it's like you can you can have like maybe my you know what ifs and stuff, but like that's not even what I'm really going on. Like that's not what I'm about. Um, but as far as that goes, what I want to continue on is how about those that, worry and care for those that they do not know? Like that's kind of like also what I'm going on to is like there are people that really genuinely care for other people like that they ain't never met. And like I I don't think any of that stuff has to do with I don't think any of that stuff has to do with, you know, pros or cons or what's good for another thing. That's just I guess that's my well-being what I'm talking about as well. Um, so it's really, sometimes I have certain thought processes in my writings and I feel like, sometimes does God even suppose this is a route for a better life? Like, sometimes there's a lot of stories that's like God has left us, and God has but like has he really like did he ask you to leave everything and like it wasn't there? Like I could be caught hypocritically like that in many different forms too, but like it's that stance where it's like he have you heard that response and it's like uh and then all of a sudden you have bad stuff happen to you and you're like that can't be it, God. That's just bull crap. You know what I mean? Like but you're still looking for God and like I'm in there too, man. Woman, like I'm in there and it's crazy because like you really know like I think this is just a phase. But like it's a really good it's a really good like you know um actually I don't know, but let me move on. So I asked the question, how much is too big or too little?